Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. It is That's What She Said Wednesday. Hello, hello. How's everybody feeling today? Ready? And Nasima said, That's the mood. That's the vibe most of the time. First things first, we got to get a couple things out of the way before we start today. And that is, it is Leo season, officially. It's Leo season. We got our favorite Leo, my twin. We be vibing on the call. Happy birthday, Jade. Everybody wish Jade a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jade.
Yes. You know what? I have been obnoxious in years in the past about my birthday, like celebrated all month. And even though I'm still kind of doing that, like it's just kind of like, I'm kind of low key this year. I don't know why, but I am. But thank y'all.
See, spoken like a true Leo. She said, I'm kind of low key this year. And then put her Cash App on Instagram. So drop the Cash App in the chat for everybody else. Put the Cash App in the chat.
You're hilarious. I don't know how to type it in the chat.
Keep a Cash App me though.
Here, because I am an entrepreneur now, so all those dollars add
up. They add up. That's for sure. So happy birthday, Jade. Happy Leo season. We're gonna celebrate I'll see you first in San Francisco. So we'll celebrate in San Francisco at Relationship Rich coming up, of which, Patty, we bought our flights last week. So we locked in. We there. And so that's number one. Number two, Patty, I see the wind blowing. I see some palm trees in the background. Can you
not regular oak trees or pecan trees?
Well, Jade told me that I don't know how to chill, so I had to prove her wrong. That's what this is about. So here I am from Maui, not chilling. Right. I had a beautiful walk today with beautiful ocean breeze, listening to Jerome Powell speak on the Fed press conference. I've been having my finger on the pulse, but I changed my scenery because Jade told me to.
Yay! So Maui is always a good idea, but it's so funny. Who goes to Maui and listens to, who did you say?
Jerome Powell. I said those two things, a walk on the beach and Jerome Powell, do not go together.
You know how expensive it is in Maui? I subscribe to the Nipsey Hussle mentality of all money in. So when it starts going out, I get nervous. I got to get my finger back on the trigger.
Period. And Nassim, what's going on in your world? Anything fun? Anything exciting? I'm just living over here. I
just got back from DC for Black Nurses Week and spending time with my little one. Got back late Monday night, so been running since then. So back on the grind. My kids started school yesterday. First day of school.
Already?
It's July. What are we talking about?
They started July 30th. So that's me. I'm back in pickup drop-off mode. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
Already.
What happened to like July and August school dates? Like what?
Yeah, so they got out
back in my day. It used to start in September.
Yeah, they got out like June 10th, and now they're back. It's a modified year round. It works for me. So yeah.
Hey, that's all that matters. But I'm sure it's nice to have them back in school so you can get back to the routine, the structure, all that stuff. Good.
Love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, good. Well, I'm excited for today's topic, but before we dive in, Patty, and before you get taken and consumed by the beautiful sunset that's going to happen soon, and you just completely tune us out, any notable updates from Jerome Powell today?
Sure. So, I would never tune you guys out. I'm always one text or phone call away. So, situation is like this. Okay. We know. First, I would like to start by saying, for the record, my opinion is that inflation is a long-term problem. This is not a problem that's going to get solved today and not pop back up. So when we do have another run, and we are going to have another run, just make sure that you stack up as much as you possibly can. Don't get caught up in a situation where interest rates go up again and the economy slows down and you don't have your stuff together and you don't have a plan to be able to make it through a good 12 months with a decrease in your income. Okay, because this is not gloom and doom. This is not conspiracy theory. This is just facts. Cycles happen, right? And we had a very nice run, and that run was interrupted in 2022. And there's a big fat band-aid on it with the interest rates being where they are right now to slow down the economy. The economy has shown incredible restraint since 2022 in the face of high interest rate environments. That means like if you had a pool and you were going to fill up that pool with water, and you know how when you're a kid, you tie up the hose so the water stops running instead of walking all the way to the faucet to turn it off? Well, that's what's happening, right? The hose has a little, so the water's dripping slower, right? So the pool's still working. The water's dripping slower. So when you unleash that knot in the hose, that water's going to start flowing again. And the thing is, so just kind of giving you an idea of how just to visualize what's happening. So when you're tightening things, it slows down. I'm like, hey, I want more water. And now you got more water and more people are going to jump in that pool, right? So think about that. Be careful and spend wisely. Just because you're going to start earning more and more money might flow in, I challenge every one of us individually and in the community that we serve here through this show to be very mindful of that. So Jerome Powell, I was joking today on Twitter and said, as I'm walking here, I'm just walking, enjoying this beautiful view, while Jerome Powell is avoiding committing to a rate cut in September, right? So he did everything but say it, but he did allude to it. The markets didn't hate what he had to say. There wasn't a massive reaction to it. The most interesting note that I heard in the press conference today from Jerome Powell was that he actually feels like the labor market has cooled sufficiently, and that further cooling in the labor market is not what they're looking for. So that's an important and very important statement, because depending on how the markets interpret that, every time we've had a big job report, the BLS job report, we have noticed that those numbers get revised. So for example, if they say 199,000 new jobs were created, 2 months later, they're going to say, well, it was actually 122,450, right? So those numbers keeps getting revised down, but those large reports create such a big wave and impact in the market, right? So what he's saying is that the job market has pretty much shown him has gotten to where he wants it to be. And he's not looking for any major shifts in the data for the job market. So I don't know what that means exactly because it's cryptic. But what I do know is Friday we have a big job report. And that job report is either going to support a rate cut or that job report is going to, slow things down a little bit in that conversation. Sorry for the background noise. So the point that I'm trying to make for you guys is that we don't know exactly how to interpret Jerome Powell's statement in regards to the labor market, but it looks like all the signs of the labor market cooling. If we from the outside can see that the data in those reports has tons of inaccuracies, of course they know that, right? So they're looking at it and taking it with a grain of salt, but it sounds like the labor market is where they want it to be. Inflation is where they want it to be. And if these trends even just stabilize and continue, we're looking at a solid 25 basis point cut in September. There's no chance of a 50 basis point cut. Now, the best news about cuts is that if the cut cycles begin in September and we start with a 25 basis point cut, that's going to bring a lot of great confidence to buyers in the market. It's going to pick activity up for people in real estate. But the buyer pool will increase, but it doesn't mean you're getting a 2% interest rate, right? So affordability remains an issue. So the idea here is to understand what's happening. It's going to be a gradual cut cycle that begins, and cutting interest rates is designed to stimulate and speed up the economy. If we're looking at it very realistically, speeding up the economy at this particular stage comes with a lot of red flags. So I would just be very careful with how you manage your personal finances, even if you do notice an increase in income as a result of this next cut cycle. If we are lucky enough to have a high earning potential over the next 18 to 24 months, take full advantage of it. Do not take your foot off the gas. As you can see, I've been taking my foot off the gas not a single time throughout this little mini downturn, and it's going to be going extra hard if we start picking up, right? Because I know that on the other side of this, there could be a much, much bigger dip on the other side of this. That doesn't mean the real estate industry will crash. We're talking bigger. Think bigger than real estate, right? You're thinking about the overall economy and the value of the US dollar. And the value of anything changes with the basic laws of supply and demand. If there's too much of something in circulation, the value of that thing goes down. So we'll talk about more of that later. I hope that's enough of a little intro and some insight.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
So
perfect.
when I hear that, I'm like trying to translate that to what that means to people in the job market, like every day, like what that means to people's personal finance. And two things really stuck out to me about what you said is that number one, when you're talking about like jobs reports and stuff like that, what I'm seeing is like a cooling in like hiring and actually people like having more options. And I'm talking about from a nursing's perspective where we're seeing like the hiring that was happening earlier is like cooling down. People have more options, so people are actually, we had a staff meeting and we heard like people were declining jobs that they interviewed for, so there's a lot more options out there. And then the other thing that we were talking about at work is like these interest rates. Like, I did a podcast interview yesterday with someone who is diverse divorce. Sorry, diver. I don't know why I can't say that now. Divorce.
She's both. Both.
Financial advisor, and then she was talking about how many people are staying together in their houses even though they're going through a divorce because of the inability to afford moving out and finding their own place. Because even when they do, like, obviously if they're going to split, like they're going to sell the house in most cases, even if they do get a big profit from the house, the interest rates being as such and then the market being what it is, they're not able to really afford places, afford anywhere to buy, right, if they want to get back into the housing market like that. But also, like, my coworkers were just like, listen, I'm not getting a divorce, like my interest rate is 2%, like I'm not selling my house, like
Right.
when you talk, those are the things that come up in my mind of what's going on in day-to-day lives. So I appreciate that, Patty.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a good point. And I'll also say what it impacts a lot and what's happening is if you lose your job, you're having a much harder time finding another job. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Also, for many people that were utilizing this strategy, you have to be careful when you see a big trend on social media where people are teaching you how to job hop. And this was happening a lot, just like people were teaching Airbnb arbitrage at a high rate, wholesaling all these courses. People were telling you this is how you increase your income in a short period of time, where you're taking your experience and then you're saying, I'm here for 2 years. Now I'm going to go apply for another job, earn higher income because of my experience, but also take a sign-on bonus. And people were doing that every 2 years. So that trend is pretty much dead, right? Especially in tech. So not only does technology,
it's the last in, first out happening right now.
Yeah. So that's something that you're going to see in the weakening of the labor market. But I just keep in mind that if you're worried about losing your job, you're listening to this and you're worried about where the job market is, there's only one remedy to that. And you have to increase your human capital. Last week's show got interrupted due to technical difficulties. But what I was saying was in 2018, I posted a video on Twitter that was from the World Economic Forum. I said, this is the most powerful video I've ever seen, and it's the most important video that everyone needs to watch going into the new year. And what I have found, I've thought about it every year since then, because it really talked about the wage gap and how in different communities, how things would change and where the net worth of those communities are headed. And there's only one way to fix that, and that's by improving your human capital. That means your value to the economic system in society has to increase in order for the exchange of your time to be worth more money. And that's, again, another show we'll get into. But that's the video from the World Economic Forum in 2018, and I can share that with anyone if you send us a message.
I definitely want to see that video.
Yeah.
And I know you said that's another story for another time. But what are some of the ways that people can increase their human capital? Like, I mean, just making it tangible for the people that are watching, for everybody, even us four ladies, right? It's like what is it that we can begin to do?
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's good I like to preface things because sometimes people see me and think, oh, she's just so like this and that, high above. No, I'm not. I just want you guys to know I dropped out of high school and I dropped out of college. Okay. I'm not a formally educated woman. But what I do want you guys to know is that increasing your human capital has everything to do with education and what your skill set is. So back when we met on Clubhouse, when Kalani and I met in Clubhouse, I was taking a Wharton University 9-week course on AI to understand
this.
Yeah, trying to be incorporated into the business of the future. And then because I'm educated, because I educate myself, I'm not afraid of the wave of AI because I understand the difference between what a machine can do and what a human can do, especially within my industry, right? So A, it mitigates fear. But B, you have to raise your skill set. There's pretty much not a topic that's hot in the market or community that I can't get involved in. So just that by itself, from a communication standpoint, raises my human capital because my opinion is of value in a certain setting, right? Then also, let me tell you how I raised my human capital. It wasn't until Kalani forced me to do my webinar, which she did force me. I don't like speaking in these settings. I didn't know how much I knew, but it forced me to learn more about the economy and how I was able to piece these things together. So I may say something very conversationally, but because of my webinar and forcing myself to speak, I had to further educate myself. So I know more about the economy today than I did 2 years ago, right? So that is raising my human capital, because what I did was learn more. Therefore, I was able to articulate more. It's interesting that even in the world of AI, what they're saying is that as the economy progresses and things change rapidly, something that's the most important thing is going to be oral communication. How many of you can speak eloquently about something you might have some passion about? That would raise your human capital. So first of all, read a book. We talked about how often do you sit down for 20 to 30 minutes and read without being distracted. It's probably one of the most important skill sets that you'll have today, because you need to be able to absorb information, use it, and then figure out how to implement it in the field that you're in. So basics of raising your human capital is education. And the second half of that is your ability to execute. Where I'm from, we say study long, study wrong. If you grasp and you hold and you hoard information, but you don't know how to use it, that information is worthless.
Yes,
Period.
I don't necessarily sit down and read, but I do. I listen to at least like 10 episodes, 10 podcast episodes a day that help me, that are either self-improvement, personal finance, or history podcast. And my superpower is listening on 2x because I have ADHD, and that's the only way I can process it, but it helps me get through a lot of information. But I also read at least 100 books a year. Um, but audiobook reading, because that's the way I process information. But yeah, the most important thing is take actionable steps on the things that you learn, because you could sit there and just absorb all that information. However, it's not going to do any good until you put it into action, because the true learning is in the doing. So I love
True.
that, Patty. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I could, so what I'm hearing you say, obviously, raising our human capital, which we've talked about I don't know, maybe a month or so ago. But then, last episode before we got cut off, man, universe didn't want us to be great that day. We were having such a good conversation last week. It was so good. But you talked about how in the Asian community, like if we were four sisters, right, we would band together to buy properties and buy, blocks of properties like they do in the Asian community. And their net worth is continuing to increase, right, as a community and as a population. And, and the theme of today's show is it really does take a village. So, there's us increasing our human capital, and to Nasima's, recent point, she said couples are staying together longer because of affordability. So, I want to make sure that we visit our overarching purpose on this podcast is to talk about things that we wish we knew sooner. And my good old wise dad was talking to me yesterday, and I asked him, I was like, Dad, what do you wish you knew sooner in life? And the first thing he said was better financial literacy. Really wish I understood money and knew what to do with money earlier. And he said, secondly, I wish I knew how valuable relationships really are. And I was like, that's good. That's really, really good. And I know we've talked about relationships and mentorship, before, but I want to talk about this concept of teamwork today. Real quick, let's take a quick moment. We have to acknowledge some of the most beautiful and wonderful things that we have ever witnessed globally with the 2024 Olympics. I mean, some of the most beautiful displays of camaraderie, teamwork, love, support in so many different ways. And it made me think about, my life. I grew up in sports and I've never gone to the Olympics, but I know what it feels like to be a part of a team, to lead a team, be a part of something that feels like you're, a part of something much bigger than yourself. And with just a couple of highlights, guys, don't come for me. There are so many. We would take an hour to go through some of these Olympic, wins, but along the lines of teamwork, I wanted to just highlight a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to shout out the refugee Olympic team. For those of you guys who don't know, there's a refugee Olympic team that is comprised of 36 athletes from 11 different countries covering 12 different sports. And it's made up of refugees, bringing awareness to the global refugee crisis, of which there are over 120 million displaced refugees globally. at minimum, that cannot go back home and represent their countries. So I just want to shout out to the wonderful display of support, and they wave the Olympic flag. They don't get to wave their own country's flag, but they wave the Olympic flag. Beautiful thing, teamwork, bringing together people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, different languages, different cultures for a common cause. I think that's a huge display of what teamwork really, really is. I want to shout out to the Sudan basketball team. If you guys have been watching that, they almost upset the USA basketball team by a mere 1 point. And LeBron James had to score the winning basket to save the USA in that game. But let me tell you guys a little bit about them. Sudan gained independence in only 2011. Okay, the country is a baby. It's in its infancy. Their basketball league started in 2019. So in 2019, and they don't even have an indoor basketball court to practice on. Okay. That team, or excuse me, that organization, the president of this organization is Luol Deng, who is an NBA legend. And he is Sudanese, and he was approached to about this project and this job. But guess what? He doesn't even get paid. He actually invests to make this team possible. They came to the Olympics, and I think why the Olympics are so beautiful is because we're on a level playing field. The rules are the same for all of us, and they came out swinging and nearly beat the U.S. Now, that team is comprised of a handful of dual citizens, some from the U.S., some that have played college and professional basketball in the USA, nonetheless waving that Sudanese flag and just absolutely killing it. And then last but not least, we have to give a huge shout out to the women's gymnastics team from the USA. Simone Biles on Tuesday, from that gold medal, became the most decorated gymnast of all time with U.S. gold medals. So China is currently leading with the most gold medals. However, U.S. is leading by a long stretch for total medals, both gold, silver, and bronze. And so anyway, that's my Olympic update. That's what I got for you guys right now. But this really just triggered a lot of thoughts of, you know, understanding teamwork, camaraderie, and how that's played a role in your life. So, you know, when I sent that over to you ladies, did anything percolate for you guys before I kind of shoot off our initial questions?
Well, I think more immediately, like when you talk about teamwork, that choosing the right partner is probably the best decision that you can make in your life, and how choosing the wrong partners can have detrimental effects. And so that's not necessarily a team in itself, but like if you're looking at your household as a team, which everything starts at home. So that's the thing that came to mind, like how, like going back to what your dad said, the importance of relationships and understanding how important relationships were. And there was actually a study done. Can't even think of the institution, a long time. I think it's Harvard. But they said that relationships are the number one driving factor to living your best life. Having good relationships over good health, over good like income, over anything else. Having good relationships throughout your life is going to be what drives your longevity and also your overall health. So
yeah.
I think for me, kind of going like, you know, with Patty emphasizing the importance of education. I mean, obviously I'm an advocate for education as well, but I also feel like this is one of the reasons when you're talking about being a team, why you have to treat people with kindness, right? Because people never forget how you made them feel, and you never know when that circle comes back around. And this is somebody that you probably need to work with in order to get to where you're going, right? And when I say kindness, I do not mean letting somebody run you over. There's a fine balance in being able to be to stand up for what you believe in, but also not be, excuse my language, shitty towards people. You get what I'm saying? There is a way, there's a good balance where you can do that. We always talk about it, you know, collaboration over competition is very, very, very important, which I definitely attest to that. But for me, one of the things that I wish I would have known is not financial literacy. It's my relationship with money, right? I was raised in a West Indian household where we were taught to save, save, save. So that's what I did. But now as an investor, I'm literally having to go through this process at this big age of like stripping myself of what I believed my entire life was the right way. And actually, for me, it feels like I'm taking a risk or a leap or a jump to actually put my money towards things that make money. People used to always say, make your money, like your money should be making money for you and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, but I was taught hard work, right? You get up, you go to work every day, you work really hard, you don't quit. That's not an option. And to save your money. So even with the hard work, I do believe you're supposed to work hard, right? So it is a mental adjustment when it is time to take a break. So those are some of the things that I wish I would have known. And I also had this mentality, if I'm being honest, I took my friendship relationships and I applied them to business. And those are not always equal, right? You can't always treat business relationships like you do friendships. But at the same time, I had this loyalty to my friendships that I used to actually believe no new friends. Like we ride until the wheels fall off. And it did keep me from some very important relationships that could have helped me along the way business wise, because I thought that that philosophy applied to every relationship, right? And so those are some of the things that I wish I knew. Luckily, I mean, I try my best to treat people and make people feel good, so that now that I'm having to circle back around and be like, hey, you remember when I'm having to really kind of humble myself. And being a forever student is really important in that, right? When you're talking about teamwork, you got to bring your A game to the table, but you also have to be a good follower. You also have to be a really, really good listener. You also have to allow people to operate in their gifts that may not be your gifts, and you should be okay with that. Like, to me, that's very important in relationship teamwork and business teamwork. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm actually really most proud of my relationships, to the point where I throw a party annually called Relationship Rich, because that's where I believe your wealth lies, is in those relationships. And that has been proven to me in time and time and time again. When I was a kid, my mom was always be like, you're so nice, everyone's taking advantage of you, and you're nice, you're always giving. And this idea of survivor's guilt, that you have this, you become successful and you always feel like you need to carry everybody with you, right? Because everybody around you doesn't have something, so you want to make sure they have it and you're sharing. And we all go through that, right? But the idea is, I don't regret a single dollar I ever lost helping other people and being there for folks. I don't regret a single dollar I ever spent on people that took me for granted, because what people do with what you give is between them and God, and what you do with what you have is between you and God, right? So just saying that, I think I'm most proud of my relationships. Your relationships can have ups and downs, they can have conflict, but the ones that you want to keep and the ones that you cultivate are the ones that are going to keep you happy. Like Nasima said, when you're old and you're sitting around, no one's going to care about how much money you have. No one's going to care about all the deals you did. Everyone's going to care. What you're going to care about is not being lonely. My mother is 75 years old. She lost her husband of 40 years. It wasn't even a great marriage, but she's alone. She's sitting down at night. I can only watch so much Family Feud with her. I can only watch so much of that with her, right? So that loneliness is a sad thing. And I don't want to be alone when I'm 90. I don't want to be alone when I'm 75. Me and my friends joke around about doing wheelies in our wheelchairs and cracking jokes. So there's nothing more important than those relationships. And in business, they also pay, right? So it's like, if you are sparking and cultivating the relationships based on the idea that you care about that person and you believe in what they believe in, two people with the same vision can walk in the same path. If your visions aren't aligned, it really is a waste of your time, right? So, but if you have similar goals and you can walk and do things together and you cultivate that, that's how you build a community, and those relationships feed you in so many different ways, your soul, your pocketbook, etc. You create opportunities for each other. They're very important. I often think, while we were starting this, I had another financial advisor that I had met on Clubhouse just refer me another loan from our gentleman. We have a mutual friend that we met on Clubhouse, formerly in the MBA. He just sent me a third referral this past week for another buyer in the Bay Area. What did I do? I only was myself, and I continue to show up as myself. And throughout that Clubhouse experience, even what I'm talking about is relationships built through social media, where people don't actually know you, but your consistency speaks for itself, right? You're constantly creating the relationships with the deposits that you're making, and they're the most valuable aspect of your business and in your life. So I do think that's important. And I wanted to end my thought on this by saying we're a team. The four of us are a team. Before doing this, we didn't spend time with each other. I hadn't talked to Nasima in years. I didn't know Jade. I do a lot of talking with Kalani, but we became a team, right? We became a team. We have different ideas. We walked on eggshells, figure each other out. We're committed. We've made a commitment. And look at what we're building. Even if there's only 7 people watching this, we know that we're building something special, and we continue to show up no matter where we are in the world for our team. See, that might not mean much to people listening, and it might not mean much to us at this particular moment, but in 5 years, when we reflect, we're going to remember how those little deposits built such a strong bond that is completely unbreakable, that we get to carry with us for the rest of our lives, no matter where we are on earth. That's the power of relationships.
Absolutely. That's good.
That's so good. You said little deposits, and that's so huge. I think that's something that when I was younger, if thank you, Dorothy. She said, I love your hair. Thank you so much. When I was younger, I didn't realize the role I played in relationships. I know that sounds goofy, like it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but when you're young, I don't think you realize how important the relationship component truly is, right? And how you show up for people. It's not about just convenience. And I think when you're younger, relationships are a lot about convenience, right? Because when we're in school and we're in college and we're going to class and we're going to parties, or I'm going to hoop, or I'm in the real estate class, or I'm working at a certain job, you make friends out of convenience and familiarity a lot. But I think that the part for me that really started to stick is that these relationships aren't convenient. There's nothing convenient about a long distance friendship with Patty, because when I got to see her, I got to travel 2,000 miles to go see her, right? Or we have to meet up and link up and go out of town together. We have to do business together to make it make sense, right? There's nothing convenient about the relationship, but these little deposits are what make the relationship reliable. So I remember when I was young, my dad called me a flake once. I think I was in high school. And I was like, what the heck? What are you talking about? You may call me a flake. And I remember, because, when people be like, hey, we should go do this. Let's link up. And, you'd be like, yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm going to be there. Knowing you're not going to be there. That was me when I was younger. And he pointed it out, and it made me upset because I realized I couldn't be reliable. And I took that personal. And so as I've come into, adulthood, and I've become more mature, and I've had to become reliable for other people. We run businesses now. We don't have an option not to be reliable. I think that attracts other reliable people. And I want to tie that to something that Jade said. Jade said, you have to make room for everyone's gift in relationship as well. And so I want to talk about staying in your lane. Being a good teammate does not necessarily mean that you are always the star player for every task and every opportunity. It doesn't mean that you will always have the attention. It does not mean, Patty's making faces at me, it doesn't mean those things, right? I believe.
Does it? What do you mean? What are you doing right now?
And so I want to talk about kind of staying in your lane and being a good teammate. So we know what it feels like to be a part of a team, but I want to talk about being a good teammate. What makes you a good teammate? And I'm going to get off my soapbox for a minute, and I'll circle back on that.
Patty, you gave us the big eyes. So
I know.
Okay. All right. So I just finished reading a book with my team called Surrounded by Idiots. Okay. So we decided as a team, I've hired a lot of people. I'll update you guys on that at another time. But so we've got this great team, and I decided we're going to read a book together. And the book is called Surrounded by Idiots, and it talks about everyone's particular personality type. So you're red, green, blue, yellow, whatever. And I'm a red. So when she said that, it was like I suffer from main character energy, and and thinking that my ideas and my implementation is great. I have learned through life that I haven't always been a great team player, which is why I had to create my own arena sometimes. And so I think I'm really qualified to start this by saying I'm not always a great team player because it's hard for me to accept when I'm wrong. I don't often think that I'm wrong. And I had to learn a lot about how to communicate properly with others to create an environment where team players could exist harmoniously. That's like a big learning lesson for me. And I was looking, and the book is amazing because it does by the end really teach you about what everyone, it's called Surrounded by Idiots, John, because the guy who is like this, his story that is the basis of the whole idea is that he's always walking around saying, oh, I'm just surrounded by idiots, because he thinks he knows everything, right? And being a red, which is me, you're triggered easily. If you want to piss a red off, then take power away from them, take authority away from them, right? And a lot of that does come from, trauma and wanting to be in control and all those things, but that's not the point today. Okay. The point today is I'm not the best team player. I'm not always the best team player. Now, I've learned that about myself, but I do think what makes a good team player, what makes someone a good team player is a very sharp awareness of how other people operate, right? Because remember we talked about that video for the gentleman who was a waiter, who was a busboy at the table. Mm-hmm. And what happened with him was his manager told him not to take drink orders. But then when a waiter told him to take drink orders, he didn't listen to the manager and did what the waiter told him to do. And then he ended up apologizing instead of arguing back. He's like, I disrespected your authority. He completely quieted down his ego to take responsibility for what he did that would have impacted how the manager viewed her role. It was a very profound emotional testimony, and it was just about a busboy. So I think what makes you a great team player is understanding your role and understanding how others operate and understanding that you're a part of an ecosystem and taking the main character energy out of it, which unfortunately is something I have suffered through and healed from through time and maturity. I'm very aware of my flaws.
He's so honest.
I think being a good teammate is also being able to take accountability. I've worked on teams before, and I think one thing that destroys a team is the lack of accountability, whether that's accountability showing up, whether that's accountability like when you screw up and you don't do your part, just own it. Sometimes you got to just take it on the chin, because when you don't take accountability and you don't look in the mirror and you're not realistic about your performance or lack thereof, it destroys trust. And you have to have trust when you're working with a team. You know what I mean? It's like, I think, because here's the thing. Here's one example I want to use. Like, for instance, if, we're all supposed to do something and I don't come to my part and I'm constantly making excuses, people are going to stop trusting me, as opposed to if I say, you know what, that's my bad, or you know what, I could have done better. And you have to be able to have that trust. So I think being trustworthy makes you a good teammate, and showing up. Nobody's going to be perfect. People are going to call in. People are going to not do their part. But at the end of the day, like, do your other teammates feel supported, like you said, when they are not the main character? Like, when you have to play that supporting role, are you showing up? Are you offering your help the same way people offer their assistance when they're the main character? You get what I'm saying? So I think that's very important. One thing, not to go off the subject, but I did want to talk about this. When you're picking teammates, I think that it's important to define what success looks like to you, because I'm learning in this process of being an entrepreneur, when you're partnering and teaming up with people, success is defined differently. Some people define success based on like quantity, how many people are coming around. Some people define success by quality. Some people define success by how much money is being deposited in my account. So if you have 2, 3, 4 strong people and everybody's defining success in a different way, then guess what's going to happen? They're all going to be divided in their approach, and then you're going to be pronged off as opposed to everybody going in the same direction, right? And so I never thought that, because in my mind, I'm thinking, obviously this success is the way that I think success is, right? If it ain't going into my account, then we're volunteering. Like, what are we doing? And some people, based on their past experiences, are just glad to be popular. Does that make sense? And they define their success by popularity
and likes.
Over here, wanting to know, is there going to be another comment in my bank account? So
right.
Yeah. Nasima?
No, I the thing about being on a team to me that stands out that I need to work on is trying to do everything and thinking that I can do the things the best, right? And being like, no, that's okay. I don't need help. Not asking for help or just doing things because I feel like I can do them better than anybody else is like one of the downfalls of being in a team. And so I think it's knowing when to let go, knowing when to share responsibility, knowing where to delegate is a big thing about teamwork. And it's something that if you don't do that, again, people are going to feel like they can't do the thing, or like, well, it's not going to be done to the way that you like it, and you're going to do it over anyway. So why am I even doing it?
Mhm.
That happens at work. That happens in home relationships. But I think it's important to acknowledge that and know that, you could fall back a little bit. And just because somebody doesn't do things the way that you like it done doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? And oftentimes done is better than perfect. And to sit in that and kind of just fall back and know that a lot of the issues isn't with the other person or how they're doing it, but because you like to have a lot of control. And I'm talking to myself. So
100%. I think that you really hit the nail on the head, Nasima, because for me, recently, in a couple of conversations with other business folks, I work with a lot of small business owners. Now, I've worked like the biggest corporate company you can get, right? Fortune 122, I think, is where they're at right now. I've worked in that environment, and I've also worked with a lot of small business owners. And getting small business owners to relinquish control is like pulling absolute teeth. And then I became a small business owner, and I was like, you know what?
I get it.
I get why you were like that. I totally understand it in so many different ways. And then, recently I have never partnered with, employed, brought in so many team members, whether that be virtual assistants, whether that be new folks on my staff with this at this like speed, right? Before. And I realized like, wow, I've been doing it wrong. I want to get good at, and I really aspire to get good at leveraging talent. Because I
Yeah.
can go a lot farther, a lot faster, and things don't need to be perfect. I realized this morning I was having like this revelation because, every once in a while we have those days where we get really overwhelmed. Yesterday was one of those days. I'll be fine. I've been fine for the last couple of weeks, but yesterday, I mean, it was like meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. Couldn't even breathe. Didn't even eat till 9 p.m. yesterday. And I hate when I do that to myself. I piss myself off because I put myself in that situation because I didn't handle my schedule right. So I'm mad at myself. And so, in that moment, I was like, wow, I'm juggling a lot of plates. There's a lot of things going up in the, spinning at the same time. And I think previously over the last couple years, I spent a lot of time. Thank you so much. Yes. Let's put this for everyone to see. Kaylani is a control freak. When it comes to my business, bet your ass I am. And but anyway, I realized I was like, man, I've probably made a really big deal over some things. I really pushed myself, pushed my team in places where we probably could have just, we could have coasted through this and we would have been all right. It wasn't worth the stress and the anxiety, and like really relinquishing control is something that I am starting to really enjoy doing. And then it does a couple of things. Not only does it help me not freak out, but it also gives other people an opportunity to shine. Right. And it also gives me opportunity to pour into them in areas where they might be, green or new, and really help them nurture their skills, hone their craft, and all of that. So I really love that you said that. If I could have done anything differently in my business of now 3.5 years, was that it shouldn't have taken me 3.5 years to start to incorporate people and delegate and build that type of culture in my company. So thank you for that.
I remember years ago, we had to read this book. My boss asked us to read this book, From Good to Great, right? And I ain't gonna lie, I skimmed a lot of it. I was reading like the chapter summaries, but I got the gist of it. Okay. Here's the thing. When you can duplicate yourself, and it takes you have to be a secure person to be willing to duplicate yourself and or allow people to operate in what makes them shine. When you can do that, you can scale. When you do that, you can go to Hawaii and your business is still functioning, even though knowing Patty, she's probably still working. But when you can do that, because I think there's a fear involved in being able to duplicate yourself and or, delegate. But what happens is 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, your team is not trying to take over. Your team enjoys working for you because they get to operate in their gifts, right? Why would they be disloyal? And I'm not saying that they won't, but why would they be disloyal? We always think that people are going to push us out. No, like that's not always what people want to do. So I mean, being able to duplicate yourself and building a team around you. And one of the examples that I heard was They talked about how, Martin Luther King got all this, everybody gave him all the accolades for all these speeches and everything that he did for the Black community. But he had a man that was behind him, helping him write the speeches. And he may not have been the one that got all the recognition, but there is no Martin Luther King without an Abernathy, or, whatever the case may be. So we all need those role players. Role players are so, so, so important, to your point, Kaylani. Yeah. And we have to be able to look inside of ourselves and say, why is it that I'm afraid to ask for help? Why is it that I'm afraid to teach somebody this? Why is it? Because it may be playing on an insecurity that we haven't faced, right? I've been there before too. So I think it's something that we really got to dig deep.
I think that's
another
book.
Point. Sorry, real quick, Patty. Another book is called Who Not How. That goes along the same lines of like finding the people to do the work for you. So just a book recommendation. Go ahead, Patty. Sorry.
No, I think that's great. Great. So we often talk about what makes a good team player is someone who's coachable. But what Jade is saying and what Kalani said, we don't often talk about how we coach. That is something I have learned a lot, because I cannot expect the people to understand what's happening in my head. I have to become a good communicator. Verbal communication is not enough. When you're building a business, because this is about teaching people what we wish we had, you have to understand delegation is a very common word that gets thrown around a lot, because you have to understand some people will say, I can't afford to have an assistant. Well, you can't afford not to have one, because by having one and freeing up your time, you can double your revenue. But people start to often delegate a little bit too early. Okay. You have to realize that in order to properly delegate and in order to build something and be a good coach, because you're right, your team player does need to be coachable, but you got to be a good coach. You don't get a Michael Jordan and a Scottie Pippen without a Phil Jackson, right? So you have to be a Phil Jackson. What does that mean in real estate? What does that mean in small business ownership? Is that you have to have a detailed set of standard operating procedures that are written down, which means that if you're looking at 4 people that work together and we build something, then if I'm absent, Kalani knows how to pick up that standard operating procedure and be able to pick up exactly where I left off. So we need to talk about that detail of the nitty gritty too. From a conceptual standpoint, everything that you guys said is so beautiful and it makes sense. Not only do you have to be coachable to be a good team player, but if you're leading the team, you also have to be a good coach. You have to be able to teach. And oftentimes that becomes, how organized are you at writing down? Have you ever thought about what you do from sunup to sundown that makes you great, that helps you close, that generates the lead, that helps you create those relationships? Just write them down, because if you can turn that into a process, you've now learned how to properly duplicate yourself in a sustainable way.
That is so good.
So good. Okay, I know we're rounding out the hour. We've only got about 10 minutes left. I want to leave some folks with some action items or some really, really good advice. So if someone is young either in age or in their industry, and they might be scared to leverage relationships, to get out to network, right? Because I know a lot of people that, and it's no shade at all, it's just the way of the world, right? People that I know, friends that I went to school with, they've, either gone off to college or didn't. Now they work in, they have a W-2, they work in some organization that they may or may not have been at for the last, couple years or decade or so. And they're just, climbing up their ranks as they know how, right? But aren't really actively working on creating, like you said, I think, Patty, increasing human capital, especially through relationships, right? So if you guys aren't out networking, out learning, out going to conferences, pouring into yourself, making yourself, educating yourself, getting your company to pay for trainings or your further education to continue increasing your own value, that value is going to stay with you. It's going to be with you where you're at right now. It's going to go with you to the next job, to the next opportunity, the next W-2 or the next business endeavor that you embark on. So if anyone has any hesitation or trepidation about building relationships, what advice would you give them that they can start to incorporate today? And I'm talking about folks that are either young in age or new in their industry, and has not fully embrace the concept that it's really about who you know or who knows you versus what you know. And I already have my thought. If y'all want me to give mine first, I will.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think And this, I was telling my little brother this the other day. My baby brother is 20 years old and he's trying to figure his stuff out. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do. And I'm like, dude, how you show up in the world really, really, really matters. Don't take for granted the relationship with that manager or that relationship with our older relatives. Don't make it all about you all of the time to where you only do what you want when you want. Be a selfless and thoughtful person, and you will create genuine and authentic relationships with people because you're going to remember how you made them feel. Don't sleep on those things. So Monday night, we went and visited our uncle and aunt, and they hadn't seen us for a little bit. We literally just surprised them. We popped by, and they were so grateful and so happy to see us. Now, my aunt is on her third round of cancer. She is in her 70s, but she's got the best spirit ever. And that hour that we spent with her meant so much. And he was like, wow, I'm so glad that you forced me to come with you here. Those things should be treasured, right? Those are the deposits that we talk about. So, when you're young and when you're new, don't focus on what you can get out of things and out of people. Focus on making deposits, and that will forever create relationships that you can come back to, circle back to, and leverage in the future. So that would be my advice. Do not be scared. Focus on the people.
I love that you said focus on the people, Kaylani. That is so strong. I think I built my entire radio career based on focusing on people. And it has extended my career now as an investor and a real estate agent because people matter. And when people feel like they matter, people will make you matter later on. Like I could have cared less, if I'm being honest, about, being some local celebrity and getting to do all these celebrity interviews. Okay, that it's all good. And I'm grateful for the experience. But my ability to make someone's day better, I always knew that was the hook. I always knew that I was here because my platform was to serve others. When you can figure out a way to serve others when you're young, like you're talking about with your brother, whether you're working at Chick-fil-A, whether you're working at Raising Cane's, or whether you got an opportunity to work at a corporate office for your parents because they own their own business, figure out a way to serve. Servant leadership is so important because once you learn to serve, then there's nothing that no one will teach you. There's so many skills that can be taught. Some things you got to wake up, you got to be born with, but some things can be maneuvered around. Sometimes you have the it factor, but nobody wants to work with you because you're a jerk, right? So at the end of the day, if you are serving people, people will say, hey, you, come here. Let me teach you how to do this. Let me show you how to do that. Hey, you, come here with the positive attitude. You know what? I've been seeing you flip those burgers. Let me show you how to maneuver with the cash register now. And let me teach you how to manage. And people really, if they see you trying and if they see you serving and putting other people first, I promise you, you will never be without a job. You will never be without a career. You will never be without a coach. So that's what I would be for a young person.
So good.
I would like to take my final moment for my final thought. First of all, I agree with that. I think that's very important. I also want to say, don't be afraid to offend people with the truth. Not a disrespectful truth, but don't be afraid. They will remember how you made them feel. And I really do not forget anybody that made me feel like I need to get up off my ass and make some changes. Ooh. It is not always bells and whistles. It's not always soft and cuddles. It doesn't have to be. If you are genuine and you are honest and you are direct, you will also leave an unforgettable impression. You might not be their friend anymore after that, but you're going to leave an unforgettable impression, and you never know how that can benefit you later in life. I don't always get the feedback that I was the softest, sweetest person in the world, but I do get the feedback that says you changed my life, right? And I'll take that. I want to acknowledge Rita Gorniak, who came on this call and made a comment, and the thing says, all team members need to appreciate what each other contribute. It's not competitive collaboration. Diversity is a strength among team members. And I think that it takes a lot of wisdom and maturity to say things like that. But it also takes a lot of honesty to implement things like that, because by human nature, we compete, right? Especially women. So I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that it's difficult to go into a room and see someone like you look at Jade and you're like, damn, I better sit up straight. Let me suck my stomach in. Let me do this right. I see, man, I really don't know how to manage my money. I can't believe she paid off $1 million of debt. You look at Kalani and go, man, she's really nice. I need to be softer a little bit. I should be more feminine, you know, like a lot of times.
So she says about me, she's nice.
Yeah, she's really nice. So we're kind of opposite. So my point is, though, we do by nature compare and compete, right? That is just a human nature. So to suppress something that's very natural in a work environment where the survival of the fittest kicks in the most, to really honestly create an environment where there's diversity and collaboration, you have to truly come into that with wisdom and be honest with yourself, right? Like you have to believe that when I'm sitting here right now, if in 1 year or 18 months or 6 months, we get some endorsement deal and someone wants to take us and put us on a big fat stage and do something big with us, I'm gonna be like, listen, I'm so great. I'm so glad I got to sit next to Kalani, Jade, and Nasima because they're making me look better. Instead of thinking, damn, I better go outshine them. I can't believe this is my one opportunity to show them that I'm the Beyonce and they're the Destiny's Child, right? So just be honest with yourself about that.
You know, I'm so glad you brought that up, though. If you think about it, that one of those lessons is learning from people that made the mistakes before you. If you see all these amazing super groups, and we'll just use music for example, that they always break up. They never stay together, right? It's because what made this group so special at some point, the enemy starts to seep in, right? Starts to like envy, turns into jealousy. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, this
outside voices.
The outside voices, as opposed to, hey, it's okay if everywhere you go, somebody is going to shine more. It's just going to happen. So if you're having a difficult time with that, you got to go sit in your quiet closet and deal with that on your own. Don't break up the group because you are having a difficult time because Patty always drops the mic on the daggum. That's what she said. And you can't do
you
that.
Call me Mr. Mike Dropper, yeah.
Hey. So learn from the people ahead of you to say, okay, this is what destroyed them. Let's know that that's going to happen. People are going to try to destroy us. They're going to try to pit us up against each other. Let's keep communication open so that you can learn and grow and do all the great things. But just learn from those ahead that came before you. Nassim.
I just wanted to say, don't sleep on the power of your story and put yourself out there, share your story because you don't know who you can impact and you don't know who you can help. I was always taught each one teach one. If there is something that I know that I have learned, I'm always going to share those lessons. And it goes back to what you were saying, Jade, about coming from a place of service. That's what it looks like for me, is sharing the things that I've learned and sharing my mistakes along the way so you don't have to make them. And so, you know, a lot of times people are afraid to put themselves out there or don't think that their story is special or think that they've made mistakes and so they can't speak on anything. I challenge people to just put yourself out there, share your story, and you just don't know how you can impact. So that's my word.
Okay, this was so good. I appreciate that. Thank you, ladies, for rocking with us again, rocking with me, and letting the conversation take us where it does. Two things before we get on out of here. I hope he's still on this call, but Lady Jade, I have a special happy birthday delivery from Apostle Sean Mark Henry. He asked me to tell you individually happy birthday. So can you say what up, Apostle?
Hey, Apostle, what's up? Thank you so much for my birthday wishes. And I saw some other people at the beginning. Thank you guys so much. Love y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in all the time. We appreciate it. It was John. Let's see. Oh gosh, I can't. Mika. Oh y'all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Special shout out from him to him. And before we get out of here, I just want to point this comment out to you. You guys know what this emoji is? It's the finger snap. With the finger snap. And I just wanted to bring up this emoji because this was commented by my grandmother, my 78-year-old grandmother. Her birthday was last week. Happy birthday, Graham.
Happy birthday, Grandma.
Happy birthday.
She is
happy
with
Grandma.
the shits, man. She's got Facebook, she got Instagram, she be using emojis, she be FaceTiming me. That's my homie. So I just had to give some finger snaps. It's Leo season for sure. So thank you all again. This has been a wonderful Wednesday, the highlight of my week. Also, happy birthday, CJ. Happy birthday, baby. Love you. And lots of birthdays.
Y'all gave me props when I jumped on when I was in France. Kudos to Patty all the way from Hawaii, dedicated to the cause, dedicated to that's what she said.
I love my girls. I'm a team player.
Yeah. Look, Patty, I ain't gonna lie though. I'm in Hawaii too. Girl, my air went out. It's 86 degrees in my house right now. I am hot.
She said, I'm in Hawaii
I know you see
too.
the sun glowing and the
Yeah,
The dew. No, it's been awesome. You guys are so awesome. So, guys, if you're still on this, please make sure you exchange some social currency, right? Tap in with us on all of our other social platforms. And if there's anything you would like for us to talk about, please send us a DM at that'swhatshesaid.show on Instagram. We'd be happy to talk about any of the subjects that you guys would like us to touch on. You guys have been awesome. We will see you same time, same place next week. Hit subscribe, click the bell so you're notified. And we, my friends, are absolutely out of here. Bye, everybody.
yes, Apostle, I'm 29.
Audio is still hot. Bye, everybody.
Bye.